In the news this week, concerns of a toxic culture on Perth train lines back in Parliament over Marlon John's death. An exclusive report coming up.
Also, God Save the Queen and Long Live the King. Extended reports and analysis on Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's passing. Plus, Dr. Andrew Miller and Mark Duncan-Smith's comments.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. Concerns of a toxic culture on Perth's train lines are returning to State Parliament, with the opposition bringing the voice of Marlon John's family to the government following his tragic death in Fremantle. The opposition wants to make the family's concerns about the Indigenous man's alleged treatment public knowledge, claiming the time is right after a push for a coronial inquiry. Reporter Nelson Liu has the exclusive details. And Nelson, what's the latest?
Well, Ivan, the opposition is continuing its calls for better training for transit officers following the death of Marlon Johns, with his family's concerns about his treatment set to enter public record in Parliament after being denied a coronial inquiry. I spoke to Nationals MP Shane Love, who will be speaking in Parliament.
Well, I think it means it will bring a measure of public knowledge to the claims by the family, and the claims of the guard that came forward later, talking about a toxic culture that existed in the Public Transport Authority. And I will use it to try to ensure that there is a better understanding within that organisation of the need to ensure that their guards are acting appropriately. I'm not making any specific allegations. I'm airing the allegations that others have made because they need to be heard.
So this is going to be raised in Parliament. What does this mean for the case?
Well, I'm going to be raising the need for there to be greater scrutiny over the manner in which the guards are trained and also over complaints which might be brought forward against them. I'm going to be asking the Minister to look at those processes and to ensure that these guards, who have powers very similar to police in many ways, they can arrest people, they can move them on, they can demand to know who they are. There's a range of things which they have which are virtually police powers, and I think that there needs to be a level of assurance that they're using those powers appropriately.
Mr Love aims to raise the issue in the next few weeks. It's back to you.
Nelson, thank you. The mourning over the passing of Queen Elizabeth II continues this weekend as Western Australians pay tribute to an icon with flowers, condolence books and memorial services. Throughout difficult times, Her Majesty united citizens and uplifted many people's spirits as she served her subjects faithfully to the end. Here is our combined report.
2 days after Her Majesty met with Boris Johnson and newly minted Prime Minister Liz Truss, a two-sentence statement from Buckingham Palace shocked the British public and people around the world, with the news that Her Majesty was under medical supervision following health concerns and stated that she remains comfortable. Members of the royal family arrived, and several hours later, Her Majesty passed away at around 1:30 a.m. Perth time. The response from the Western Australian public has been overwhelming, with flowers and signing of condolence books at Government House from Thursday. WA Premier Mark McGowan, Governor Chris Dawson and Lord Mayor Basil Zemplis also paid their tributes. A church service happened on the same day in St George's Cathedral, and major landmarks in the city were lit in royal purple to remember the beloved Queen. King Charles III was proclaimed in Western Australia this morning, following the official proclamation ceremony in London on Saturday evening, Perth time. Many citizens came to the ballroom this morning to witness the occasion, with Mr McGowan, Governor Dawson and other officials.
Historic day when we proclaim a new king. Thursday, 8 September 2022 marked the end of the second Elizabethan age, with the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and the beginning of the reign of His Majesty King Charles III. It is a role that he was born to fulfil and has been preparing for his whole life.
As has been remarked, the late Her Majesty has been a constant figure in our lives and history. The world has changed a great deal since she took the throne in 1952. Technological change has accelerated. Empires have risen and fallen. Attitudes and social norms have been transformed. But through it all, for so many, she has been a symbol of dignity, grace and compassion in an era of great change and tumult. Synonymous with the post-World War II era in a way that no other head of state could ever be or will ever be.
Veteran political journalist and commentator Peter Kennedy joins us for his unique take on Her Majesty's prominence in Western Australia and the future of the monarchy.
And Peter joins us now. Peter, thanks for your time. I understand you have very unique experiences and memories all the way back in the 1950s.
Well, it was 1954, Ivan, and it was the first royal visit by the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. They toured right round Australia, of course. By the time they came to Perth, Perth was gripped by a poliomyelitis epidemic, and there was some doubt as to whether they'd actually make it to the West. But they did make it to the West, albeit with some modifications. They were to stay at Government House in St George's Terrace. That was scrapped, and as a substitute for that, they stayed on board the royal yacht, the Gothic, in Fremantle Harbour, and that was looked after the health aspects. There were also caution about the Queen touching things and posies of flowers being presented to the Queen and that sort of stuff. But it was a terrific tour by the royal couple. There were archways in St George's Terrace. The whole town was tarted up, and a very memorable occasion.
Can you share with us what your family experienced when the Queen visited Perth?
Oh, Melly, they toured right around the metropolitan area and to some country centres, and the crowds turned out in huge numbers. And my family lived in Subiaco, near Thomas Street, not far from the studio here. And my mother took my sister and my brother and myself up to Kings Park Road one morning to see the Royal Cavalcade travel along Kings Park Road into the city, and there was huge crowds in Kings Park Road and right around the city. And it was a bright morning, I remember quite vividly. And the royal couple in an open car whizzed through, a police escort, of course, waving and whatever. And it was a day of great happiness, I guess, that the first royal tour, people actually saw the young Queen and the Duke, and it went off very well.
The Queen has worked tirelessly over the years. She has met with Boris Johnson and Liz Truss this week. The last visit she had in Perth was back in 2011. I remember that vividly. She was the glue that held everything together, in fact, the whole Commonwealth together.
Well, with regards to CHOGM, Ivan, I understand you've got some very unique vision from that visit in 2011, which I think will create a huge amount of interest. So well done on that. But with CHOGM, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, very important for the Commonwealth, very important for the unity of this very diverse organisation, which was the Commonwealth, and sort of all sorts of pressures, all sorts of cultures. But the Queen was the uniting force. And she held it all together, which was quite extraordinary when you think of the latter part of the 20th and early part of the 21st century, that she was a person of enormous respect. She didn't take sides in any particular issue or argument, but she was that force of unity, the glue that held the Commonwealth together. And those CHOGM meetings, very important. Her presence at the CHOGM meetings, very important, and you know, people have been forecasting the disintegration of the Commonwealth for years, but while she was there, she was the glue that held it together.
Given that King Charles III doesn't have quite the same level of love as the Queen did, do you think the Republican movement might find success this time round?
Well, look, it's King Charles III. It's something we'll have to get used to, but it's an enormous challenge for Charles, who's waited so long to become the monarch, and we'll have to just wait and see. But a lot of people are of the view that sort of the Queen was on a pedestal, huge respect, and I guess Charles will have to earn that respect, and that's an enormous challenge for him. But I've got no doubt that in Australia, a lot of people had said, with regard to a republic in Australia, well, look, there'll be no republic in Australia while the Queen is on the throne. Sadly, of course, that's no longer the case. So it's a new ball game. We'll have a period of mourning, 10-day period of mourning. and there'll be a funeral, huge coverage. But with regard to the Republican movement, I've got no doubt that the profile of the Republican movement will lift. But the supporters of the movement will have to handle it very carefully if they're to succeed in their goal. That's a challenge for the supporters, it's a challenge for the government, a challenge for Mr Albanese.
Peter Candy, thanks for joining us with your unique insights.
My pleasure. A momentous day.
Mask mandates on public transport are no longer in place from Friday as the McGowan government continues to relax COVID restrictions following decisions from the National Cabinet. This means masks are not needed on buses, trains, ferries, taxis, rideshare, interstate and intrastate flights into Western Australia. From this weekend onwards, daily COVID updates will be replaced by weekly statements with case numbers, deaths and other essential figures. Meanwhile, the state of emergency will also come to an end soon, with the McGowan government marking a new chapter as the state parliament resumes.
Multi-million-dollar upgrades to a Coburn AFLW venue are on the cards in a bid to boost women's and community engagement in sport while addressing facility shortages. Victor George Kalis Oval will receive the $6 million overhaul, receiving female and non-binary change rooms, spectator amenities, disability access and a multi-purpose space. The facilities will be used by the Fremantle Dockers AFLW team, along with female, Indigenous and all-ability community sporting programs. The state government says it will give the venue the potential to be a hero facility for female and community football.
Female football in particular, from grassroots through to junior community female football, elite pathways all the way up to AFLW, along with all abilities football and general community football will be able to be played here over weekend, training during the night as well too, which is a phenomenal outcome for all involved.
A 17-year-old boy has been charged after an alleged incident occurred on a charter flight that was carrying 3 detainees to Perth. As a result of the incident, a 17-year-old boy was taken into custody according to police. He was transported to Perth following his appearance at a Broome Children's Court on 6th of September after he allegedly drove a stolen Nissan Pathfinder in a reckless and dangerous manner in the community. Broome detectives carried out inquiries regarding the charter flight incident, and the 17-year-old has been charged with 1 count of acts with intent to prejudice safe use of aircraft and 1 count of assault public officer. The boy will now be conveyed to the Perth by the Department of Justice.
Home buyers have been urged to consider their personal circumstances in the housing market if they have bought a home or are planning to buy, as interest rates continue to rise. Both mortgage holders and potential buyers need to examine their finances to avoid payment difficulties and financial hardship, with the Reserve Bank of Australia increasing interest rates for the 5th straight month. AA Finance Solutions consultant Justin Ong said ongoing rate rises are never good news for homeowners, especially those with mortgages, but also for potential buyers.
What is your current personal circumstances? Because buying a property is not the decision of buying a property or getting a housing loan is not solely based on where the interest rate is sitting, but it depends on your personal circumstances as well. So it has to suit your situation. I would want them to consider those factors before making their mind whether they should put it on hold despite of interest rate rise.
Award-winning FIFO mental health advocate Nigel Gold continued his work on Are You OK Day, stating the importance for all Australians to pay attention to their loved ones' mental health and ensure that help is provided. Mr. Gold reminded that it's okay to seek help and that the spirit of Are You OK Day should be carried out every day of the year.
Listen, it takes a long time to get the art going. I've been doing it for quite a few decades now, and I'm lucky I can pick things up. It's all through experience, but so can the average Joe Blow, the average operator, the average person behind the desk, the person's, council workers, the general managers. It goes from the top to the bottom. It's just a matter of listening and picking it up and being attuned to the people around you.
So, are you okay, Ivan?
As always, I'm okay. I'm fine. You're fine. Everyone's fine. And Luke Derrick is also fine. He joins us tonight with Western Perspective. Good evening, Lukey.
Thanks, Ivan and Melly. Welcome to Western Perspective. This is Luke Derrick. As public transport mask mandates officially ended this week, we asked Dr. Andrew Miller about his call for HEPA filters to be placed in public transport, such as buses and trains. Dr. Miller has been calling for HEPA filters to be in public transport spaces for a while as an added level of protection against coronavirus. Dr. Miller, thanks for joining us. With mask mandates coming off, why are you calling for HEPA filters to be put in public transport?
Well, anywhere where we're indoors with other people who are breathing out virus, we need to either have a lot of fresh air coming in to flush it out or some kind of filtration within that space. So they have HEPA filters, filtration in aeroplanes, of course, in order to scrub the air in there. We don't like the idea of drinking from someone else's drink container. We shouldn't be accepting that it's okay to just breathe someone else's dirty air.
Technically, how would this be done?
There are a lot of solutions available in addition to just opening windows and letting air flow through to filter air. But when you're inside a crowded bus, nothing will protect you from the person who's right next to you because the air still has to go and get filtered. So masks are the best way to protect yourself, but certainly it would assist if there was some kind of HEPA filtration on any recirculated air inside vehicles and inside buildings. And yes, all of these things are feasible and not that difficult to do.
What kind of benefits would this bring given mask mandates have come off?
Well, you can actually get very effective clearing of air using HEPA filtration. And although masks will no longer be mandated, the government's careful to say that we should be wearing them when we're in crowded indoor locations. So it's unfortunate that they're giving up the leadership on this, but that doesn't mean that people need to feel they will go entirely unprotected, and they should be encouraged to wear masks in those circumstances. And I think that if we do get a new variant which drives case numbers up, then we'll see people returning to masking because they'll realise that we don't yet have a solution that gets rid of the virus completely.
With the end of the state of emergency, what do you think will be the future of virus management as much of it is being handed back to individuals?
Well, we heard the New South Wales Premier say that we just have to expect that there's going to be a lot of deaths. And if we don't want to be getting sick repeatedly, risking long COVID or chronic COVID symptoms, and we don't want to be infecting people who are close to us who may be vulnerable to, in particular, to severe outcomes from this disease, then we do have to look after ourselves. So it's turning into a bit of the Wild West out there, and we need to take effective action when there's virus around in the community to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And in the end, I think the government will be forced to act because we will start to see cases go back up again within the hospital sector, and the long-term health burdens, of course, will be bad. But in the meantime, it's a little bit like having to assume that the government are now allowing people to decide whether or not to drink and drive. You just have to take that extra bit of care when you're out there on the road. Now, clearly that would be a ridiculous thing to do. And in time, I think people will see that you can't just remove all of the public health protections like they are doing in the midst of an ongoing pandemic and get away with it. But just for now, you've got to look after yourself.
Dr. Andrew Miller, thank you for your time.
Great to be here.
And now, AMA WA President Dr. Mark Duncan-Smith has a COVID-19 update and medical commentary on GP clinic matters.
Well, good evening, everyone out there, and what a weekend it's been, and what a week as well. This week saw the Premier, of all things, blame general practitioners for all the problems with the state tertiary health system, somewhat unbelievably for those in the industry. GPs have been the backbone of the community response to COVID. They have kept thousands of patients away from the tertiary hospital system and have protected the tertiary hospital system. The Premier seems to have the wrong end of the stick when he's saying that they've caused the tertiary healthcare problems, and I certainly urge him to grab the other end of the stick for a change. Even if GPs were sending patients to the ED, and I don't take it that they are, GP-type patients don't take up beds. They go to the treatment area of an emergency department. They get seen, they get discharged. They don't cause bed block, they don't take up beds, they don't cause ramping, and they don't cause hundreds of patients being in the hospital system. This is what also leads to the cancellation of elective surgery. Quite simply, GPs don't cause this. So either way, the Premier has got the wrong end of the stick yet again. What we'd like to see is the Premier to spend as much time trying to fix the healthcare system as he tends to spend blaming everyone else for its failings. COVID and GPs have not caused the failing of the healthcare system, the tertiary healthcare system here in Western Australia. This has been caused by 5 years of neglect by the McGowan government. Basically, the McGowan government has kept the operational budget of WA Health in austerity for too long. This has led to a downgrading of services. The system has been run into the ground to the point where safety has been compromised. GPs have not caused this. GPs have helped to protect the system and continue to see patients and protect the system. I call on the Premier to show us the evidence that they've caused the problems in the tertiary health system. And hopefully he's not relying on someone having told him that that is the case, because certainly that doesn't give any credibility. That's simply hearsay. And as a lawyer, he should know that. I call on the Premier to produce the evidence that he's got to show that GPs have caused the backlog and the problems in the tertiary healthcare system. Otherwise, to issue a retraction that in fact they are not causing the woes of the tertiary healthcare system. So hopefully he'll spend as much time in the future trying to fix the healthcare system as he does blaming everyone else for its failings.
That's Dr. Duncan Smith, and that's Western Perspective for this week. We'll be back again next time, but for now, it's back to you, Ivan and Melly.
Thanks, Luke. And now, here is Leo with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks guys, tonight on a special edition of 6 News, King Charles III officially proclaims following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. A public holiday declared here in Australia as calls for a republic ramp up from some. And also tonight, 21 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. You can see full details on those stories and plenty more by heading to our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News AU to find us, or head to our website, 6newsau.com. For now though guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Leo, and that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. Melly, it has been a very tough week for many Australians, particularly for our friends in the United Kingdom as well, and our thoughts are with them and also with the royal family. From both of us, we wish you good health, good night, see you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.